Good evening, everybody, and good to see a full house. I've also got with me Simon Smith. If you'd like to stand up, Simon. He's the Chief Financial Officer. So Simon will be around later on at the end for canopies and that to do any Q&A. I will be around after my presentation if anybody else has got any burning questions, but I won't be here for the canopies, but Simon will be, just to give you a heads up. So please do ask the questions when we get to Q&A, and if you want a one-to-one, then I'll be out afterwards if you would like to do that. So CyanConnode, we got that new name of CyanConnode from the 1st of July when we acquired Connode. Connode being a Swedish-based company, and we're delighted actually because what it actually gives us now is #1 in narrowband communications globally, and that's terrific. You know, we all know about broadband, but narrowband really, when you look at the smart things, the Internet of Things, that's all you need is narrowband radio, because the amount of data that goes from, for instance, electricity meter or a gas meter is fairly small, so you don't need a big pipe of broadband. That really is great for videos and looking at slides and things like that. So we're delighted that we've got that. It moves us into the Internet of Things space, whereas before we were smart metering and smart lighting. Now basically we can connect any device in any neighbourhood, and it's true open standard. And that's what else it gives us, where we've actually, before we were looking at the emerging markets, we now can look at the Western world, we can look at the UK, Europe and North America with the product set, and that product set then is a true open standard. And that's now where we can today be part of the UK smart metering programme with Telefonica, and I've got a slide on that in more detail in a moment. But basically, we play in the region 1 and 2. There's 3 regions in the UK. Telefonica's got region 1 and region 2. Region 1 is the south of the country. Region 2 is central, the Midlands, over across to Wales. 3 then is by Arqiva using 412 spectrum, Radio 2 as we call it. That's for the north of England and Scotland. So they've got a slightly different cut from that, and that is my old team that I kicked off a few years back in smart metering. The contract we have, and it's a signed contract for the UK smart metering programme, is £25 million sterling, and our part of that is what we call not spots. So it's based on, as you all know, you go somewhere and your mobile phone will not work. That's called a not spot. And they base that on 10% of region 1 and 2 not being able to have a mobile connection and not being able to put through the mobile network the readings from the smart meter. That's based, that 10%, that gives us a £25 million contract over the term of the contract. And that's also including support fees. I've got more detail on that as we speak. What that actually says to us, though, we believe, and the government has said, they think the not spots will go to 25%. So we're looking at then 37 million contract going forward. So watch this space as we go further with that product set. Recently as well, we won a £10 million smart metering order from Iran. When the sanctions come off, we went there, we got the order. I've had people, project managers out there, deployment of smart cameras, street cameras, as well as now rolling out smart meters. We're doing the integration part of that with the meter manufacturers and project managers. And we're also talking in Iran about further orders, and those conversations are going really well. You know, to date, we've had £1.5 million worth of orders from India, where we've won actually the 4 orders out of 3 contracts. And those are what we call advanced metering infrastructure. So now we haven't just got the contract on a bit of paper, we've actually implemented meters in India, and the successful, we're getting readings from that, which I'll go on to a little while into this. We also now have millions of pounds of turnover as opposed to hundreds of thousands of pounds, and that's a step change for this year, which I'm delighted about. Everything and our focus is all about high margin revenue, and that's looking at the software. We do hardware today, but our goal is to move to software, and that software gives us 95% gross margins. In the UK, that's our gross margin, is 95%, because all we do in the UK is deliver software. And the software, as you know, once you've made it, you've designed it, you can roll it out fairly quickly and fairly simple. So looking at this, what we actually do, you can see then on the left-hand side on the smart metering value chain, you've got different devices. So you could have in the home a device that could be an electricity meter, a gas meter, an in-home display. What we then do is from there, it goes over the communications platform we have, and we connect over with a data concentrator unit. And this then has a SIM card based in this, or it can have fiber based in it as an alternative backhaul, as we call it. It then connects up something like 50 to 150 devices, depends whether it's smart metering or smart lighting. With lighting, you can put in actually up to 250 of lighting, but here we're working on 50 to 100 in terms of electricity metering. So that mesh, as we call it, which is self-healing, self-forming, can street by street collect all the information up to this single point. We then go over the SIM card or the mobile network in whatever country. We then provide this software, head-end software, and management system inside the utilities billing system. So it gives an end-to-end solution all the way from the home. You're sat in a call center if you're working for the utility. On your computer, you can see exactly the usage of every single meter in that region. The time of day you can see, you can give incentives for those people at home to say, right, from midnight tonight, electricity is going to be free until 3 o'clock in the morning. Or tomorrow morning, because we've got a lot of loading to work out, because we want the peaks to come down, we'll actually put the price up between 9 and 1 tomorrow. We're going to double the price of that unit per electricity to dissuade people from using the electricity at that moment. So part of the two-way communication will enable other applications to come in that will give things like prepaid metering, time of day usage, analytics, all that information that they will be able to say, where should we build our electricity substations, where should we build our more transmission cables for the people that are using more electricity than others. There's something like 300 million people not on the grid in India, so by being able to identify who's using electricity, collect the cash, that means they can put more people onto the grid and have those people using prepaid meters. And prepaid meters have only this year started to take off in India. They've never had them before. Our solution helps that prepaid complementary solution. So I'm just going to talk about UK smart metering in a bit more detail. It's 53 million gas and electricity meters that's going to be connected up by 2020. There has been an announcement put out by the UK government to say the system go live, which actually should have gone live last month, has slipped to the end of this month. That doesn't affect us because our plan is for us Q1 next year to roll out the meters, you know, the last mile, if you like, into the homes, etc., with Telefonica and Toshiba. But the system go live, which is, I'll explain on another slide what that really means in more detail, has slipped a little bit. You can see on the bottom here the contracted revenues. You can see here the support fees and the one-off fees. That's what adds up to 25 million. And our best case then on the right-hand side goes up to the 37 million pounds sterling. So we are heavily working on that. We do continuous work with Telefonica and with Toshiba to look at other spectrum and build out from where we are today. So this is a bit more detail. So this is a contract we got. The government's awarded Telefonica Regions 1 and 2. They've then given the hardware to Toshiba, and our software sits in the Toshiba HUD with a server into the Telefonica network. Here is, that's supposed to be a home, would you believe? So as an example, in-home display, electricity and water meter, electricity and gas meter, I should say, any other smart appliances hooks up to this Toshiba hub, the hardware, and inside there has got two SIMs. One is for the mobile network and one is for the mesh network. When the mobile network goes down, it goes onto our mesh network, and then it carries the signal from there over Telefonica into one huge United Kingdom data center in one building. It's huge. 53 million meters of information go into one place. That is run by CGI and Capita. And then any of these utilities then can take any readings from those homes all the way through to here. But this is where the real control is. And this is what they call about getting the system ready, the throughput, the end-to-end. You can imagine with all those players, there's a lot of pieces, a lot of people got to get their act together on the hardware and software. And that's what's been going on. And that's why it's slipped by another month here. But as I say, it doesn't affect our plan because part of our plan is rolling out from Q1 next year. And that goes until 2020. And then we carry on with support fees. What we also have now is not just smart meters, as I mentioned at the beginning, but the Internet of Things. So any device looking at monitoring the traffic lights, car parking, waste management systems, anything that anybody wants to monitor and measure and improve the performance, then we can deliver that. So you've got these devices, as I say, can be street cameras, the modules, the hardware that they're put into these devices, and our connectivity that comes in here through our internet platform, and then the applications that people want to look at. Here we've got something now like 800,000 points deployed, in Scandinavia with our Connode part of the business. Looking down at Brazil, we're looking at Africa, we're looking at India, etc. We've got a great amount of coverage these days, and we'll continue to look at other countries. How do we go to market? That's important. I'm not here to build a big workforce and a big cost. It's all through partners. So, for instance, we work with Vodafone, we work Toshiba and Telefonica. Vodafone, we work with their subsidiary company in Africa, South Africa. NZen and Larsen & Toubro, we work in India. Ulster, we work in India. These are meter manufacturers here. These three, we work with Swede in India. Larsen & Toubro, a 24 billion market cap company, so a huge operation. We went through them and got the contracts with Tata Power in Mumbai, and they use their name to do it. We are working on additional contracts with Tata Power. We've already had 2 from them. We're working on a 3rd one and a 4th one. And they want to get these meter manufacturers all geared up to have what we call interoperability. So anybody, they can be agnostic to whatever meter manufacturer have in the utility, because through our network they can talk to one another. Another big player for us, JST in Thailand, they started off as a distribution company with us, and when we did a placing in July, they put in £2 million sterling. So I said, oh, that's interesting. If you're a distribution company and then you want to put £2 million of equity into the company, why is that? Not only that, 2 weeks back, they put another £1 million into the company. So, that says it all to me. What do they know? They know more about Thailand than I do, because that's where they live. And actually, they're ex-British Pax. The owner has been there 40 years. He's from London. So, his son, it's a family business. He's been in the oil business for years, and he's diversifying into other areas because of the contacts he now knows out in that part of the world. So these are just some of the contracts that we've got. So CESC Mysore, today we've actually rolled out 18,000 meters, delivered and installed them. Out of the 21,000, we're waiting for what we call 3-phase meters. That's for big high-end users. They were a bit slow, actually, the meter manufacturers, to get 3-phase aligned of the last few meters, because single phase is more for most of the population, but 3-phase, they're a bit slow in getting their production lines going. So we're just sorting that out. But that's going really well from our point of view. We've got another one then, PVV&L, where we've delivered 12,000 meters today. And out of that, we've installed 3. So we deliver them to site, then we get people to install them, and then we get them commissioned and put them onto the network so they can do the readings. And that's what they're doing with Tata Power. The first order we got from Tata Power was what we call a heavy lift. We were heavily involved. We trained Larsen & Toubro, we trained Tata Power to install them, commission them. The second order, they said, that's okay, John, we do that. And now we're third line support, which is great, because that's what we want to be. And then we'll get further orders from them and then roll out. What is important out of here is to note how many customers they have. They have 2 million, they have 3.5, they've got 700,000 and growing, actually, because they're taking more on. That's where we want to roll out to that amount of consumers in those customer bases that we've got. So our solution is what we call quite sticky. You don't normally put 2 communication platforms in, because they won't talk to one another. So that will defeat the interoperability and the information that flows back to their systems. We do have on the bottom here an opportunity of 32 opportunities across India that we're working on. and we're looking to cover something like 62 million customers. Remember the goal of the Prime Minister? He actually wants to roll out to 250 million smart meters in India. It's a huge market. And that's just electricity. We've only got 27 million electricity meters here. So you can see the opportunity for us to go there. Not saying we're going to win all of them, but if we can win a good portion, then I'll be delighted. Let's just talk about the rest of the world. What we have got here is potential for 43 opportunities, 22 million devices. We've really gone quite strong, in the rest of the world. We're working, as I say, in Iran. We've got a £10 million order there. We're going to, and we are talking to them about more. These are the countries we're working in around there. China is very good for us on street lighting. We've had street lights in for about 5 years now, managing the tunnel lights of street lights, and actually we can switch them on and off and dim them at night to save the electricity when there's little traffic going over those roads. And I've already mentioned about JST and their investment, and I've got people this week out in Thailand, and then I had people a couple of weeks back in Iran. So there we go, just talking about the Iranian order, where we got, first of all, prove can we get it working, and that's when they challenged us on the smart street cameras. And these smart street cameras are about 5 kilometres apart, so it's not an easy forming mesh, but we came up with a solution for them. They liked that, and then they gave us the order for the first part of the smart metering. But what is interesting for me is this. It's a 33 million smart meters that they want to roll out. So I want to get as much as that as possible, and that's why we're talking to them further about that. What's really interesting here, 50% of the order, the 10 million, is actually on software, and it's what we call a term license. What does that mean? A term license for 5 years. So at the end of 5 years, it stops if they don't pay us again, and we say, right, if you want another 5 or 10 years, there's another order you have to give us, another 5 million, 10 million, whatever the negotiation is we do. The other 50% then is on hardware. And what we call hardware, we do drops. So when they order, say 100,000 devices, we take them to the part of the country they want them working in. They pay us 75% of that hardware up front on that particular drop of orders. So that means we're not having our cash flow go out with manufacturing costs and all the rest of it is covered by that. So if I can repeat that sort of contract and repeat that around the world, I'll be delighted. You can't get away with that everywhere, but it's a great contract for us, with the software and the 50% being funded. I can shout from the rooftops how good we are, and why wouldn't I? Because you'd expect that as shareholders. But, it's just these people here. We're getting awards. And I was just down in India. I was in India for 10 days, and I was invited here to the power industry, where they have a retreat once a year, where all the ministers, the power ministers, have regional power ministers, and they have the national minister. They have MPs there. They have CEOs from the utilities, and they take their wives there. It's a 4-day. You think it's it's in Goa, but the storms are in there. The rain's coming outside. You're there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 1 in the morning with them. Presentations going on all day. God, do they work hard, but do they drink hard as well? So I now know where all the whiskey in the world goes, so which is fantastic. But what really surprised me, they gave us an award for the best smart metering system in India. So I was delighted with that. Coming from Cambridge, taking the product there. So that's really good for us to get that award in recognition from people in India. So, we are very strong internationally. We are growing. We will get into other areas, as I mentioned, gas, water. We are talking about improving the contracts that we got. We're moving into the Internet of Things. Our business model is all about software and hardware today, where we've sold perpetual licenses and software. We want to move to term licenses. We want to move to managed services. And those managed services then repeat per meter per year or per meter per month, multiple years, 5, 10, 15-year contracts. We actually want to say to the manufacturers in country, made in India, made in Iran, we'll give them the rights to manufacture the hardware we have, and they can do it under license, and we'll get a royalty payment. So that's our business model, but we had to start by offering the end-to-end solution because it's a new market for people to understand. They're very quick to pick it up. When I first arrived here 4 years back as the chairman, people in India were talking about handheld devices. walking along the streets to collect the data. They don't talk about that anymore now because they've seen the end-to-end throughput where you don't need people now knocking on doors or end of the street with information because it's all hands-free. They know exactly what's going on. So really delighted then that they've seen the technology, they're quick to grab it. Iran was very quick to grab it. There's other countries of the world there. And, you know, the governments of the world know that they've got to do something about the energy in this world with the population growth and control it better. That's why there's a big push on the smart metering everywhere, and that's why there's a big push here. So that's me. That's bang on time. So delighted to take any questions that Roland you want to manage.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you have any questions for John, please? Gentleman here, Chris? Can you wait for the microphone, please? Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a very interesting presentation because it's the first time I've heard of this. And it's quite stimulating to listen to all this. Well, who are your main competitors in the market?
Yeah.
And how long did it take to get the Iranian contract, for example? How did it come about?
Okay. So I'll take the first question about competition. So you all heard that. So yes, we do have competition. The main competition that we get is some local manufacturers, meter manufacturers in India, where they've made the modules for handheld stuff. There's two main competitors out of North America. One is called Silver Springs, SSM. They're a big outfit, a lot bigger than us, but they have a broadband product. We came across them in Brazil 3 years back, and their price point in Brazil to our narrowband was about 8 times our price point. Now, obviously, they've done something about that, and they would like, for the first time, actually, we've noticed them go into India. They haven't been for years, but this year they've started. Now, they haven't been that successful yet, but, you know, that's one competitor. And it's interesting because if you've got a business and the business is taking off, you want to make sure there's competition there. Because if you've got no competition, it means there's no market. And the other one is L&G, who's also got a product, and a North American product again, and want to take that round to other parts of the world. But, you know, will they have it for the markets that we're entering? You know, it's debatable from a price point of view. So those are the two main ones, really, that are in there. You have some meter manufacturers would love to offer the full solution, but they're heavily getting into just what is a smart meter and away from just shifting tin. So your second question then, so how did we get into Iran? Well, interesting enough, I had an email from a contact who was an Iranian person in Sweden about 12 months before they got the contract. He said, John, he said, I'd like to understand what you do. I think I can get you to Iran. Can we meet? Can we talk? And all of that. And I thought, one of these emails that come into the company, I thought, yeah, there goes another one. Yeah, I'm sure we're getting to Iran because the sanctions were on. And we just talked, we met, we educated one another. And then when the sanctions come off, we met in Turkey actually the week before with people, and you know, we couldn't sign the contract there, but they finalised it, and then a week later we signed it, and it was done. So it did take 12 months, but it was because of the sanctions were off. But it was within weeks of the sanctions coming off. And by the way, the UK government were really good to us, and the export department. Believe you me, before we took the contract and could announce it, we had to jump through hoops of legal stuff here in the UK and North America. So you can't have more than, is it 20%, Simon? 10%. 10% of any American parts in your product to Iran even today. And we had to prove that we don't have 10% of American products in the product. And by the way, we got all the legal stuff, and they said, yeah, okay, you're good to go. So hopefully that's answered your question. Thank you very much.
And it's out of interest, the Iranian contract, so who was the ultimate signatory? Was it the kind of Department of Energy equivalent?
Well, a bit like we've got the contract with government Telefonica down to Toshiba to us. It's the same flow. So we've got a partner there now, so Micromoja it's called.
Right.
They're the local partner. They're the ones now doing the delivery. They're the ones that we're training. And actually, they now want to manufacture our stuff in Iran, which is great.
So they're a Middle Eastern firm?
Yeah, they're Iranian. They're actually in Iran.
In Iran, fantastic.
Yeah.
Any other questions, please? Here, thank you.
John, in Iran, what currency are we paid in? The 10 million pounds, is it paid in some exotic Iranian currency or dollars or pounds? And are we confident that we can get the money out of the country, or are they going to insist that we reinvest it back in Iran?
Very good question, actually. Very good question indeed. And I'm glad I got my CFO here.
Do you want to take the mic?
It's a hot topic, so yeah, good
I
question.
think as you're probably aware that currency trades in US dollars are not permitted with Iran still, so it will not be in US dollars. So we've given the price quote in dollars because that's how they want to understand our pricing, but the actual payments are going to be in euros. So that's the preferred currency. There isn't a restriction on the Iranian government side or the partners in Iran in terms of paying money out of the country, so they're not insisting that we make investments in the Iranian markets. That's not a requirement that's come up.
Okay, but the contract is priced in pounds.
The contract is priced in dollars because that's what they asked for, but all the payments will be in a third-party currency, which is going to be euros.
Okay. So
And then it will come back into pounds as we bring it over here.
So the currency is working in our favour at the moment?
Correct.
Question, off he goes.
Could you give me some indication of the revenues for the next 1 or 2 years and margins?
Yeah, so I'll give you an idea of a typical margin on software only is 95%. Then we have a blended margin if we're doing the hardware. We have given some numbers for 2019 through our two brokers, which is Cantor Fitzgerald and Beaufort, and if you get to your broker, they'll be able to give you the numbers, but we've got no forecasts between now and then out into the market. But
A gentleman here, please, Chris.
Sorry, when you were talking about competitors, I just came across a company, a UK-based one, called SMS. I don't know the last name.
yes, yeah.
And I just wondered, because you are UK-based as well,
Correct.
so obviously this one I think is kind of working with the government to actually put smart meters for
That's
years
right.
to come.
Yeah.
So I just wondered what...
Yeah,
what
so the SMS is smart metering system. Know them well. We do talk. What they do is really, if you like, secondary meters. So they're really in hardware and providing meters, whereas what we are is the communications and the software that hooks up those meters back into the utility. So their name sort of doesn't really say what they do on the tin in a way. It's slightly, but they're very successful, very good. They've got a good model. They'd love to expand into some of the markets that we're going in. So yeah.
Are you complementary in that sense?
We could well be. We could well be.
There's a question in the row behind, Chris.
Hi there, thank you for the presentation. I found it useful. Where do you see the company in the next sort of, 5 years or so? I mean, what's the ultimate goal? I mean, because in the UK, there's a lot of, there's been a history of, technological companies which have kind of not reached their potential. They've either been sold out cheaply or been taken over. So what's your, as directors, ultimate sort of, what was your ideal situation for the company? Are you planning to sort of grow it to a medium size or large size company? Because, I mean, there was a conference earlier today and they're talking about the Internet of Things of, potentially 50 billion devices connected. So potentially with the communications and the software that you've got, could you also do analytics as well on the back of that?
Yes.
So there's potential to go quite far ahead of where you are now. So yeah, just have your thoughts on that really would be good.
Yeah. So first and foremost, you take us as the board of directors. So we're putting something like £1.5 million sterling of our own money into the company. I would have put in about £750,000 by the end of this year. We're taking no money of the board and no salaries or fees or whatever for until next July. So that's our commitment, to show commitment to everybody that we believe in what we're doing. So we'd already put in quite a substantial amount of money. So. And what we want is, as shareholders and shareholders in the audience, is actually to grow the value, create that value, and we get to a medium size. So our goal now is, and why we just said we'll start off in India, we'll win orders there, we'll then move to other parts of the world and prove our business model. I do think that somebody will come along when we get more medium because of where we are, and somebody will come, but believe you me, it's going to be at a premium if I have anything to say.
I'd hope so too. John, with the Indian state, is it federalised? Is there a different decision maker or client in each of the different states of India, or is it at a central level where decisions are made?
Yeah, so the central level actually put in recommendations of throughput and processes, and they actually put forward what they want.
Right.
But they don't insist on it. They can't insist on it because it's more of a regional area. So the regional areas, and a lot of them are public utilities. There's some private like Tata Power and Reliance. And
Yeah.
by the way, in Reliance, we've had a pilot running there for about the last 2 years. So you get the regional people then with all their influences, and that's why what we call an ecosystem, which is made up of all the touch points of people like meter manufacturers, hardware suppliers, communication suppliers, others. Because in the UK, for instance, you may have heard there's a thing called Zigbee. Well, Zigbee is great for inside this room, but as you go into the neighbourhood network, it's hopeless. You know, it just hasn't got the distance. It's not meant to do that. And, you know, so we got to work with the Zigbee people, because we're connected to that and carry the information further into the neighbourhood. So it's all about partners, it's all about finding who the local people are. When I went to that Goa retreat, there are hundreds of people there and I had to get around them. I got a whole lot of business cards, because that's what it's all about, get around as quickly as possible. Decision makers, influencers, policy makers, regulators, you know, because the regulator, as I say in our market, the regulator will say, you cannot change that meter because it hasn't been written down. You know, it's got to be written down by 2 years. That's why we come up with a retrofit unit. That means that if you can't replace it, because the regulator says you can't, have this little box that sits alongside the existing meter and makes that dumb meter smart. So that's how we work, and we're always listening to what the end customer wants.
And have you found the work you've done there, particularly in Mysore, that the conversation changes now you can prove that you're doing it already?
Oh, absolutely, and that's why we now are going to, later on this month, meet the Central Electricity Authority, the Smart Meter Grid Force. They want us actually to tell the big audience our experience, not only in India, but taking orders and winning, but our experience now in the UK and elsewhere, so, which is great. So we are in India classed as a thought leaders in what we do today.
Very good. Ed, I think we have one more question if there's any questions in the room. Gentleman here.
Yeah, thank you for a really interesting presentation. I was just curious about the cash position. So you've done a placing in July. Just wanted to understand the burn rate and how long that would take you until you actually get the revenues from the contracts you've talked about.
Yeah. So we did the placement in July, and then we had JST, who I mentioned, came to us 2 weeks back and actually said, that here's another $1 million as well. So that was good. We didn't ask for it. They come to us, which is always nice that somebody comes to us. So we don't give forward-looking statements on our cash and position. We haven't got them in the market, so I can't really comment on that. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, I think we're probably there now.